She looks at me and she says, "You have Walmart feet."
Walmart feet? Okay. Chris Spencer,
All right.
you know, I think you're the first football player I've had on my show.
Ooh, lucky me.
What is that?
I know.
It took me coming to Nashville. That's what you've been saying. You're like, girl, you need to come to Nashville.
Got to get here.
Everything's in Nashville. Here's what I'll be very interested to see. If the big, tall, strong, tough football player.
Uh-oh. I don't even know. Do you want to finish this? I was wondering if I was going to have to put one of those on.
You don't have to do anything.
Or I thought I was going to have to take it
judge
home
you.
as a souvenir.
Well, you could. I don't want it back once you wear it.
Can I pin? Well, I'm not going to take my other socks off because, I have football feet.
Do you? I want to see.
I mean.
Do you?
No.
Are they all mangled toenails
you
hang nails?
You don't want to see this.
Like hammer toes, crooked.
You don't want to see this.
Really?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
It's actually funny. I was doing some rehab one time, and
One time, like one of millions, right?
at this place
Okay.
here in Nashville, and I was laying on the table, and this girl lady walks by, and she just stopped and she's just staring, and I'm like, what is she looking at? And she looks at me and she says, "You have Walmart feet."
Walmart feet?
I was like, what do you mean by that? She's like, you know how you go to Walmart and you see people walking around with no shoes on, no socks on, they just like walking, their feet are all mangled and messed up, and she's like, "You got Walmart feet."
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, that's awesome. And guess who it was? Miranda Lambert. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Hilarious. We joke about it all the time now.
Oh, you and Miranda just joke around about it?
Well, in my
See?
friend
You see the
group.
name drop?
In my friend group.
That was such a name drop. Walmart feet.
Yeah, she told me I had Walmart feet. Yeah,
Oh, that
I
is
never forget
beautiful.
that. Now I'm embarrassed to take my socks off in front of people. So
So
I'll
you
put
wanna
your socks
it
on.
over.
I'll put your socks
Okay.
on. Let's see
Which
what color I
ones
want
do
to
you
go with.
want?
Let's see. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I mean, pink and gray always
Pink and
goes
gray, yeah.
together.
I got some brown. I got a brown shirt on
And
today,
I also
so that's
think,
good.
yeah, and I also
Question
think,
is, are they gonna fit? When you wear a
What
size
size are
7,
you?
when you wear a size 17, it makes it.
17?
Yeah.
My son is a 14, but 17. But see, you're only 6'3".
Thanks for pointing that out too. I appreciate that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I should be 6'8". I
You
know.
should be.
Yep.
You
I get
should
it.
be.
I get
Oh,
it.
those are definitely 17 now that I look down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
so-
you have to special order everything.
No, they've gotten. I used to.
Oh,
but
you have people.
They've gotten better at making bigger shoes now. So.
Well, it depends who makes them. Let me see.
Yeah.
These are probably fancy.
Heavy.
Where are they?
These were.
Thursday?
Yeah, it's a company called Thursday that makes boots that I really like their boots.
They're super cool. They look comfy. They're very Nashville. And I will say this too, guys. That is a real man putting fuzzy pink socks on. That is a real man.
I actually wear these around the house sometimes. My daughter, she likes to make me wear her fuzzy socks.
The fuzzy
too,
socks.
So,
Yeah. I do think it's a girl thing.
Yeah.
See, I always choose ones that intentionally do not match. I don't know what that says about me, but
No, I like that. But they do kind of match, though.
I'm really impressed with this. Thank you, Chris.
Let me get my
And
socks on here.
And I know your wife, so I would have been like, "Hey, Catherine, he is soft." If you had said no to me. Okay. First of all,
They kind of fit.
it looks great. Thank you. That was a test.
Now I'm gonna start sweating because I'm still a lineman at heart. Our
Yep.
blood still runs warm.
And it's 76 degrees in here
Yeah, but
because
you're
I'm
still
a wimp.
cold.
Well, I'm a wimp. Again, I'm admitting that I'm a total softie. I love the fact that you're dropping big country names as soon as we start the show off. Like you're first of all, you are a country boy.
I am a country
but
boy.
you've become you've really just because Seattle, where you were drafted.
Yeah.
Chicago, I mean, it's very cosmopolitan. Yeah. Nashville's different.
I'm back in my roots.
And you're back in your country roots.
Yeah.
By the way, is she nice?
Very nice, awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Genuine, down to earth?
Genuine, down to earth.
Can I be in your friend
Her
group if
husband,
I move here?
he's awesome. I mean,
Oh,
it's
he's the
Nashville.
younger guy.
Yeah, he's awesome though.
Oh yeah, wasn't he a cop?
Yes, New
Is
York.
he still a cop?
No.
What's he do now?
I think he's
Miranda's husband.
yeah, and he does a bunch of her setup tours and bodyguard stuff type.
Very cool.
Making sure that she's safe. So
Good.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so there's a very good chance that Am I okay? Are we good?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm just going to try to.
Man, you guys are on it.
See, we got
You
to
may take it off. I can take it off
No,
too.
we don't, whatever you want, but we don't edit anything out. So just so you know, that's going to be on. So whatever.
Oh, you don't.
I don't edit anything, including if I call Dana White Joe Rogan. We just roll with it. We don't edit anything. Even if I should, I'm like, nope, we're going to own it. What was I saying? Oh, in general, this town, the last place that you played in the NFL,
Yeah.
right? So was that in the intention, like once you got here and kind of fell in love with the city?
No, it wasn't actually. It was, my intention was to move back to Seattle. My wife's
Really?
been from Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, that's right.
You know, I've loved the West Coast. My wife had a very interesting experience coming to Mississippi on a volleyball scholarship. Her first place in the South. It was a culture shock for her. And so she didn't want to come back to the South.
Yeah.
And I got it. But once we kind of made the tour around after having kids, being in Chicago, and then we stopped here, completely different vibe for her. She was just kind of like, you know what, I can do this.
Yes.
These kids parents are parenting. They're helping my kids out on the playground. You know, the Southern hospitality where people showed up with cookies and cakes and all of that. And she was like, I don't want to leave. So that was 4 days of being here.
Really? So
Yeah.
that happened fast.
Yeah, it happened really fast.
There is a huge difference between Nashville South versus Mississippi South.
Oh, 100%.
And especially if you're a 6'1" tall, beautiful blonde from Vancouver, which is your wife, Kathy. She's
Yeah.
6'1", right?
6 feet.
6
Yeah,
feet.
yeah.
Because I don't often look up to women.
Yeah.
And she's got a good inch on me.
Put some heels on her. She's about 6'2".
She's a 6'2",
I'm like looking eye to eye.
6'3". See, that was strategic. And that's how you make athletic babies.
Yes, yes.
That was
It was a
strategic.
plan. It was a plan. Yeah.
Total plan, yeah. How would you describe your hometown?
Ooh, small. We had one stoplight, and not a stoplight, the flashing light. My
Just
hometown.
slow down,
The slow
yeah.
down, stop sign. So I kind of grew up in two areas of Mississippi, a little small town called Bentonia, Mississippi. And that's where my granddad and my family had farms, and we did, grew cotton and soybeans, and then we also had the shade tree mechanic shops. And so my cousins, they all were shade tree mechanics, and so I grew up doing all that. And so sports wasn't a thing. It was, you waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, let's go get the equipment ready to go. Let's go get some, get the oil changed on a tractor, get diesel in it, and we out in the fields, we going. And so when you grew up in that type of environment, you're not thinking about anything outside of that. I wasn't thinking about sports. I didn't care about sports. I was like, I want to be like my granddaddy. He drove heavy machinery. I mean, he, any kind of backhoe, bush hogs, you name it, he drove it. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be just like him.
How cool is that?
I
That
mean,
you wanted that he was your idol,
yeah, he was.
not an athlete. It was
No.
your hardworking granddad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is going to sound very ignorant, which it would not be the first time I sounded ignorant. Definitely won't be the last. But it almost is, like picking cotton. It sounds like it's from the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But no, I mean, there's
I'm not that old.
cotton. Like, if you're that old, then I'm like long dead because I'm older than you. But yeah, people still pick cotton.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a way of life and a life that some people only know, right?
But by the time it got to me, though, we were heavy machines.
Yeah, still.
It was big cotton pickers. We had the big tractors, the big discs. So we didn't have to go hand pick it. Now, I will tell you a funny story. My granddad was cheap. He was cheap. He didn't believe in buying the chemicals to kill the weeds around all the cotton. He would give you a hoe and a file, and you would have to go line these rows of cotton. And we're talking about acres of cotton. And you have to go down and you have to chop around the cotton, all these weeds from around the cotton by hand. So we got away from the picking the cotton to actually making sure all the rows are clean from the weeds. And so I think that was the first time I started to realize how to be strategic, how to think about things outside of just the cotton rows, because there was so much to do that when you have 6 people and you're trying to clear all these fields and you have a certain time you have to have them clean, you have to play games. And so that's when I think I started really developing my leadership when I look back on it, because I would lead the rows and I would find little sticks and things and I would throw them as far as I can, and we would make a game out of it. The fastest one to get to that stick, win the day. We didn't have much to give, so it was like you get an extra piece of bologna, or or you get an extra Diet Coke, and so that was part of my growing up. But at the time, I didn't know any
That
better.
was your sport. That was competition.
Yeah.
And these are with siblings?
Cousins.
All cousins.
All cousins. Yeah.
And were you the biggest one? Were you the biggest, strongest, fastest?
I was the most well-rounded.
What does that mean?
Meaning, all the different skill sets of, athletic ability, the size, the speed. And I had a cousin who was bigger than me, but he just was lacking a little foot speed.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So when did you even discover football then, if you didn't care about sports?
It wasn't until my granddad, he ended up selling the farm, and we ended up moving over to a small town called Flora, Mississippi. And Flora was bigger than Bentonia, about 20 miles from Jackson. And so we moved there, and my mom was like, well, every day you had something to do. You went in the fields, or you went and did some mechanic work. Now we're away from that. You got to find something to do. So she grabbed me and snatched me into the coach's office and said, here you go, he's playing football.
That's how it happened.
And the coach looked at me and looked at her and said, okay.
Yeah, he's playing football.
He's playing football.
Because how big were you at this?
I was still, I wasn't very big. I mean, believe it or not, I was one of the smallest boys in my class until about 5th grade. Yeah. And so that was, so I went to Detroit for a summer, stayed with some cousins. I got a lot of family in Detroit. And I think we cooked twice the whole summer. We ate out for every meal. My uncle, he worked at Chrysler. He was an executive at Chrysler. And so we ate out every meal, and I came back and I looked like a fat butterball. My mom didn't recognize me getting off the plane. I walked by her and she didn't recognize me. And that was kind of that same transition when I was like, all right, you playing football. And so when the coach looked at me, I was just a round kid, soft, so he didn't know what I can be, but he was like, well, if he kind of got this kind of weight on him right now, he may be a good football player. We'll see.
And I'm sorry, what age was this?
I think I was about 5th grade.
Okay, so that's early.
Yeah, so about 12.
Did you like it though?
Not at first. Not at first. First time someone hits you in your face, you're like, it's like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until you get hit in the face. And my plan was to go out and play football because my mom was making me. But when I got hit in the face, I was like, whew, all right. But then all of my country strength kicked in. My country pissed offness kicked in, and it was like, all right, that's not going to happen to me again.
Yeah.
And I think it took me about a week, and then I was smashing people, and the coach was like, all right, we're putting you on the defense.
Oh, so you started defense.
Yeah.
Interesting. But alignment.
Defensive alignment.
I was going to say.
Yeah, defensive alignment.
You weren't a safety.
Not a linebacker or a safety.
I
didn't have that kind of foot speed.
But not quite like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So was it an outlet for you in a way, like to be able to, because everybody, I don't care what kind of upbringing, to be able to punch back, as you said?
Yeah, at the time I didn't think about it as an outlet. It was more, I was mad because I didn't have my comfort zone of being on the farm. So I use it as like I'm gonna get this anger out because I was mad. My granddad ended up selling the farm because all I want to do every day is get up, get on the tractor, go out and dig up some holes, disc up some fields, plant stuff, see it grow. I was really upset that happened. And I was upset that we moved away from my little town where I can get up on a Saturday and go down to my cousin's shop and work on a car and learn how to do mechanic work. And so I would have to drive all the way back over, 20 minutes, 30 minutes back over, if I wanted to do that. And so I use it as my outlet to get that anger out.
Yeah.
With my, not, because I couldn't, you're in the South, you're not talking to your mom any kind of way. You're not telling mom that you're not moving. You're not telling mom you're not playing sports. It's like, this is what she said, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. There's no fighting it. And so I think I use it that way than just like an outlet of, like most people use sports.
First of all, yes, you are so correct with the moms in the South. I wish I'd lived in the South with my kids. No, I'm mean though. I'll threaten them. Like, I don't care. Like, there's a certain way. I always say this. I don't know how you and Catherine do it. I don't expect perfection, but I expect respect. And it is truly, usually it's not their words, it's their tone.
Yeah.
And that's something, there's an animal that comes out of me
Yeah.
if their tone
Yeah.
is not respectful.
Yeah. You know,
And in the South, you will get,
yeah, it's such a different era of raising kids now, because I've had to learn how to channel that animal and come out of me, because the way we grew up, it was be seen, not heard as kids. Adults are talking, you're not interrupting. You know, and now to be on the other side where, you know, I had that respect when I walked into a room with adults, I just paid attention, I listened.
yes.
Now, you know, having my own kids and you're in the middle of a conversation with your wife and your kids come in and they want to interrupt you, and it's just like,
Yeah. But
it's taking a lot of work to suppress that, like, you know, all of those things you learn growing up in that environment.
true, while at the same time maintaining those standards. We just do it in a different way.
The standard is a standard, yes, and but I think that's a challenging part of it, is keeping those standards and learning how to do it in a different way. And that was my challenge to myself is, okay, these are the standards in our household. We're going to parent our kids this way, and we want to raise respectful kids, great kids, humble kids, but I can't do it the way how I was raised.
Yeah.
And that's hard when all you know is that way.
That's the thing, is if that's the environment in which you grew up, you don't know any different, and you probably think it's okay. What? Describe it. Was it?
Oh.
In hindsight, was it over the top?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a smart one in the family, because I didn't get very many spankings or anything because I knew what not to do. But my granddad would reach in the back of his truck and grab whatever he see and start whooping butts. So he didn't play. He didn't play. And we all grew up. My mom and her two sisters, my mom had 5 kids. My aunt had 4 kids. My other aunt had 2 kids. And we all grew up in the same house together. You know, so, and we all followed my granddad's rules, and my mom and my aunts, they were the moms, and my granddad was basically the dad for us all, you know, and so.
So like 9 kids.
Yeah, he didn't play.
And just grandpa. No dads were around.
No dads were around. Dads were around, but not you know, day to day in the house. Yeah. Yeah.
So describe that. What was the day to day?
Well, for the boys, it was you're getting up, you're getting out, you're going whatever the task your granddad has, you're going to do those tasks. If you have school that day, you're off to school, and then mom would pick you up, and as soon as you're done with school, you're right out into the fields.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no travel soccer team.
No. Pee-wee football, I didn't know what that was. When Pee-wee football, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was throw a ball out in the yard and pick it up and run it. You know, we didn't have all this organized things. And I think when I think back to, especially a lot of the work that I'm doing now, that our kids had so much structured playtime, that they're not able to use their critical thinking. They're not able to use their mental performance, because there's always a whistle, someone adult kind of monitoring that. We learn how to negotiate playing pick it up and run it. We learn how to negotiate when it's hot, 100 degrees outside, and you don't want to go out in the fields and work, and you're trying to negotiate with your mom on like, hey, if I can do this, can I skip, at least an hour of this, And so that environment has taught me so much that I don't know how we all don't have to go through some type of struggle like that.
Well, for sure. But I'm fascinated with you. Like, at what point did you realize you didn't want to raise kids the way that you were? And I don't understand. If you're comfortable sharing, what was the bad part of it that you were trying to not repeat?
Well, for me, and it was when you don't know, you don't know. And because I was able to get out of my environment to start to see different things, like when I met my wife, 2-parent home, how her parents operated, and every family have their challenges, but just watching different families, I'm very observant about things and people, and so I watched this all the way through high school and college. Even in high school with friends, I would go to their homes and watch how their parents are parenting. And my mom, she had me when she was 15. Wow. And so we grew up together. And so I didn't have all the rules and things that a lot of people had. And so for me, what I wanted to, and watching my granddad, my granddad was married 3-4 times, and he was a great man, but he had some flaws, and his wives knew his flaws, and so I always wanted to make sure I didn't repeat what he was doing. I always wanted to repeat. I didn't want to be the father that wasn't there. I didn't want to be the granddad who, my word is the only word in his house. I wanted to have a cohesive conversation when it came to those things. And so that meant that I had to start looking at, how do I want to raise my kids? And part of that is learning on the fly, not knowing what good looks like. Because again, you're young, I started having kids when I was 24, 25.
Yeah.
And so now.
Imagine that, you were 24, 25. Imagine being 10 years younger.
I can't. I have no idea how my mom did it. 5 kids, starting that early, and then not having all the support that she needed to raise us. I don't know how she did it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Which, I take that back. It takes a village.
Well, and it
we
was
grew
her
up in this
sister
small
and-
town, sisters, aunts, and uncles, and everyone. And so there was no one you walk by that you couldn't escape. If you did something wrong, they will get you. Uncles, aunts, it didn't matter
They
who it
find
was.
out, and then they.
Yes, you can do something
That's
at school,
amazing.
and you can go to aunt's house, and she'll get you. So
I love that, actually.
there was no hiding it. So it's kind of like our kids now. We have cameras everywhere. You leave the house, you do this. Everything is being tracked. Your cell phone, all that. We had that in our environment. It was like
It's the same thing.
same thing, just a different way.
Yeah. What was the hardest part?
I don't know. I was naive. I loved it. I think the hardest part is kind of looking back and trying to reparent and retrain myself.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part. But in the moment, in those times, I felt like I had an amazing life. I didn't realize we were poor. I didn't realize we didn't, have what other people had. I didn't realize that, going out to work in the fields wasn't normal for a lot of kids.
Right.
I didn't realize all of that. And so for me, it definitely has made me who I am today. But at the same time, there's things that I've been able to learn from it and take out of it. And there's things that we're gonna just leave that there. And so I didn't think it was hard coming up. I thought it started to get harder as I started trying to figure out, what do I want to do in my life?
Okay.
Is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life? And it got harder around those times, especially in high school, early on in high school, and I was playing football and still trying to work, still trying to do pouring concrete.
In high school. Wow. While you're training, while you're doing all that,
Yeah, it wasn't
So
it wasn't uncommon. I say that
So the work ethic was established very early on.
very early.
And I think sometimes people look at professional athletes and it's like, oh, God gave them all that talent, but some of it. And then there's too many people with that God-given talent that how do you take
So
that
what you
step
do with
up?
it.
Right. So where do you, like in hindsight, where do you see how that upbringing in the fields impacted your uber successful football career?
The first thing I look at when you start talking about mental toughness, resilience, being able to work through challenging times and not quit.
Yeah.
Like, you grew up in that environment and you're able to get to the other side of that environment, the mental toughness that you have, it's unmatched. Because I've played in this league with broken bones, broken tibia plateau, and I'm still playing the game because of that mental toughness.
Walmart feet.
Walmart feet.
Yes.
I've done it all, and so the mental toughness from that environment gave me a great foundation. That's not where it stops, but it gave me a great foundation to really survive.
Yes.
Because that's how I would look at mental toughness. It's the ability to survive tough things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. But the other thing that I don't think people who don't study it I don't think they realize is, to me, I'll just say it, I believe the smartest people on the football field are offensive linemen. And in particular,
Thank
the
you.
center.
I appreciate that. I received that.
Good, receive it. In particular, that center, right? I mean, you are the quarterback, basically, along with the quarterback who's down here getting ready to take the ball, that you're going to snap the ball to. But do you agree? I mean, you have to know everything about everyone on your line and them across the ball from you. I think you're the smartest. You were always the best interviews. If I wanted to really know X's and O's, I'd go to the O-lineman. Period. I'm not going to the running back. I'm not going to the receivers. I'm going to the O-lineman. What is that?
Well, because we've had to develop this mindset of, we are, your numbers only call when you're holding.
True.
Or a false start.
Yeah.
And so you're the wall that everything has to come through. And so you operate that way in life. You're the guardian. And so you say guys are the smartest. I didn't think I was the smartest. And I became one of the smartest for myself in understanding the game because I was running from trying to figure out how do I navigate in a world where I have this thing called dyslexia that I don't want anybody to know. And so it forced me to study in ways that I had to know everybody's job. So I play center different than probably a lot of guys. I play center knowing everybody's job because that was my way of being able to see the whole field. A lot of people play center because the center position is is a communication thing. Getting everybody on the same page, see in the field, making blitz and things, picking up different blitz. And that's the true way to play the center position. My way was, I had to know this because I didn't want anybody to think I was dumb.
Wow.
I wasn't thinking the way normal centers play the game. I was like, I got to know this because I don't want. If I know what the quarterback is seeing, then I can speak in a way that people know that I know what I'm doing.
Why was there this fear of being perceived as dumb?
I grew up in Mississippi, farm kid, small town, black kid in a small town, and you have that knock already, and then you're an athlete, you have that knock, and then now you put on a stage where you have to talk, you have to be in a position where you have to keep everybody on the same page from a communication standpoint.
It's your responsibility.
So you have all of this responsibility, and for me it was a tough time for me. I mean, just trying to navigate through that.
And this is what age when you were really navigating through that?
I mean, I navigated through it my whole life because we didn't have tools and resources.
True.
When I got diagnosed, I think I was about third grade. We didn't have the tools and resources around that. And for me, I created my own solutions to navigate. My mom, she fought for me to make sure that they didn't put me in special ed, and she did a great job of fighting for me on that. And so I had to prove her right and find my ways to navigate through the system. And I figured once I kind of got out of the school system that I'd be able to thrive. But what I didn't have is those tools. Even when I got to the pro side, college ball pro side, is to do it. I just knew I was going to outwork you, and if I can outwork you, then I'm good. Especially as a 315-pound lineman in high school, 700-pound squatter, I knew I was strong enough.
700 pounds.
It was how do I understand the game in a way that works for me? Because no one was teaching it or teaching you plays, but how do I process it for me? And so I put a lot more time in it than most people. So
that is difficult, but it's also super cool that you were able to recognize that early and say, okay, this isn't the way that I'm going to be able to receive it and understand it, comprehend it, and move forward. So that, I don't know, I mean, that to me is the intangible that you can't teach people that.
Yeah.
To think critically, I guess, in many ways, but also like, okay, let's own the struggles. We all have them. And then, but what are our strengths? And how are we going to deal with this struggle? Because it's not going to go away.
Right.
That takes a high, I don't know, is that like a EQ?
I call it EQ.
Yeah.
I call it EQ, self-awareness and being aware of what your strengths are, and then being aware of how do you actually put yourself in position to
Right.
thrive. And it took me a long time to. I mean, I always had this ability to just pay attention and watch people.
Well,
And I was able to do a lot of things because I was able to watch and just learn and not feel like I had all the answers.
you're not teaching anybody that.
No, you're not. It's an innate thing that
It's an innate
yes,
thing. That
yes,
also, I think, goes to your position.
yes.
And personality, where you don't need to be the center of attention. No pun intended with center of attention, right? You don't want
I don't
to
want
wear number 81
No.
because of what comes with that.
Yeah.
So when you left home, I guess you did the camp and stuff when you were in Detroit, but like when you went to Ole Miss, what was that transition like?
Well,
I mean, I assume you knew some of the.
yeah. So when you're in Mississippi, you're kind of in a different bucket when you become a really good football player. And so for me, going to Ole Miss, I went to Ole Miss because I wanted to see things change in Mississippi. A lot of our athletes were leaving Mississippi, which whatever works for your situation. But I wanted to kind of be one of the guys to be a catalyst to, changing this narrative around, the South when it comes to going to a predominant white school.
Yeah.
And so James Meredith was one of the first black guys who showed up on the Ole Miss campus. They had the Naval Guard march him through campus to his classes, and I was just thinking of, this guy risked his life, to pave a way for us. So why would I turn and go away from it? And on top of that, we had a great man as a leader there. David Cutcliffe, he was probably one of the best men I know. And I wanted to go to a university where we had a great man as a leader that saw the human inside the athlete. And when you're around him, he doesn't have to say anything, you feel it. And so feeling that and feeling like I was at home, that was the place that I wanted to go. With the history of being like, I could be one of the guys. I was highly recruited, number one recruit in the state of Mississippi. And so the spotlight was on me.
And I want to say like top 5 overall linemen in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, did you comprehend the magnitude of that?
Absolutely not.
You knew you were good, but like.
No, you asked me the question earlier about when did I know that this, football was for me.
Yeah.
I was pouring concrete one summer in Meridian, Mississippi, and we had a tractor with a bucket, and it was pouring concrete in that bucket, and I was scooping it with a bucket, climbing a ladder, and it's hot, 90-some degrees out. Humidity is through the roof, and I'm pouring these stairs, and all of a sudden I felt like I was about to faint as I was coming down the ladder, and I was like, ah. So I stop and I go sit in the truck, turn the AC on, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking like, God, this can't be my lot in life. It has to be something better for me to do. It has to be. And that was when it dawned on me. This was going into my junior year in high school. I had half of the SEC offers already. So I was so naive that I wasn't even thinking about those things until that moment. And then the light bulb went off, and I remember saying to the boss, saying, hey, this is my last day, because I made a decision in that truck that I'm putting everything I have in football so I can get out of this life.
Gosh.
And I pull up the next day and go into the weight room, and I just start training really hard.
On your own.
Yeah.
Like coaches there to guide you, but
yeah, I was a strength coach there.
No, but like this is not normal.
But I was just, when you grew up the way I grew up, you're kind of like you just have blinders on, and it's just like, what's the task? How do I do it? Now let me do this task. My granddad taught me, I'm gonna teach you. It doesn't matter what you do in life. I'm gonna teach you how to be the best at it. And he's like, if you're gonna be a ditch digger, I'm gonna teach you how to be the best at it. And so with that mindset, I had blinders on around a lot of things. And so if I'm pouring concrete, if I'm doing mechanic work, if I'm doing farming, I'm blinders on. I'm not listening to all the noise around it. But it came that time where it was just, my mom said to me when I was like 7, she's like, I don't know what it is, you have this aura, you're not supposed to be here in Mississippi.
Really?
I never forget it.
She felt it.
Yeah. And I didn't know what she meant by that. And now
And also,
it's-
you probably didn't realize what would obviously come with that. You leave Mississippi, but like your quality of life, money,
yeah,
that changes everything.
yeah. And so making that transition into, from that into college was like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
And then your first round draft pick at what, 26 overall?
26 overall.
2005. Mm-hmm. And then life really changed.
Really changed.
Right?
Really changed.
What was your contract? What was your rookie contract?
Rookie contract? You want the number?
Yeah.
Oh, $10 million
10 in 05.
in 05.
That was 5 years?
5 years, 5-year deal. Yeah.
You get a bonus?
$5 million guaranteed.
5 guaranteed?
Yeah. Now think about that.
I was going to say, and now.
Mississippi kid. This is, and again, like the crazy thing about it, I wasn't even going to come out. I came out as a junior, as a redshirt junior.
Your plan was to stay through, and then.
Yeah, I was had a couple classes finished up. I was living a dream. I loved Oxford. I mean, one of my favorite places in the world. And it wasn't until I was leaving, they fired David Cutcliffe, and they sent the O-line coach in to talk to me, and he's like, hey, I want to see where they're projecting you to go. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I signed a piece of paper. He sent off a letter to the NFL Junior Committee. Remember that committee?
Yes.
Well, the committee that they put together where a lot of kids were leaving school early and was not getting drafted. And so once you declare, you lose your eligibility.
And then aren't agents involved in that part? Like once you
Once
sign,
you declare, then agents can get involved. But this committee was put in place to kind of let guys know, hey, you may want to think about not leaving.
Yeah.
So you have a good idea. And so for me, I was going to Vancouver, Canada to meet my in-laws for the first time. It's like, hey, I'm out of here Christmas time. And so I didn't think anything about it until I get a phone call from the junior committee in Vancouver. Again, I have no idea how they got my in-laws' number. And so say, hey, this is so-and-so from the NFL Junior Committee. We're projecting you to be a late first round, early second round draft pick. You're not going to get your ladder in time, so we just want to give you a heads up. I was just like, okay, he's joking. It's like, he said, no, I'm not joking. It's real. And I said, okay, cool. I hang up the phone, and then the next day, Ed Orgeron called me, who was the new head coach at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And Ed called me and was like, what are you thinking? I was just like, what do you mean? I mean, coming back to school. And he was like, okay. When I said, I'll be there for recruiting season. Let me know what you need me to do. Hang up. The next day, Archie Manning calls me.
That's a whole other level.
A whole other,
The Mannings in Mississippi.
Yeah, and Archie, it's just, again, probably one of the best families I know. And so he calls me, and he's like, hey, big guy, here, you got a good grade. And I said, I did. He's like, what are you thinking? I was like, well, I just told Ed Orgeron I'm coming back to school. And he's like, let me make some phone calls for you. And so he called around and talked to several GMs, probably about 8, 9 GMs, just to see if it was a legit, if I decided to come out, what would happen. And he calls me back the next day and he says, hey, Chris, it's a legit grade. And I said, well, Archie, if I was your son, what would you tell me to do?
That's the best question, the smartest question.
And he said, if you were my son, the position you play, new coaching, he's like, I tell you have to go.
You gotta go.
This is a life-changing thing for you. I tell you have to go. And I said, okay, Archie, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll call you next week. I hung up the phone and called my mom and just said, hey, I'm left for a voicemail. Hey, Mom, I'm going to the NFL. And let everybody know that I was declaring right then. And so the rest is history around it.
That's how quickly you changed it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's some of the best advice. And what a blessing that you had.
Oh, my goodness.
Orgeron, you had Archie to be able to say and give you advice that wasn't selfish.
No, not at all.
Towards what
Because
you could have helped him.
He's Ole Miss royalty. And
yes.
Coming back to Ole Miss, he said to me, he's like, much as I want you back here, he's like, I got to look out for your future. Mm-hmm. And I was just, and to this day, I was going
to say, that's special.
Oh, yeah.
And when they act, when they care. 2 things. Number one, I now know my baby girl's a freshman at Ole Miss, and I never understood Oxford. I never understood the Grove.
Special place.
Oh.
Yes.
And then the Walk of Champions.
Yes.
Jackson Dart. All the freshman girls like, let's go see Jackson Dart, right? But you know, I love it for many reasons, but I love the fact that a white man, well, both of them, right? Not just Archie. Doesn't matter. They were looking out for Chris, the person, the young man.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like the South gets a really bad rap because, yes, there's things in history that happened and we should never, ever forget them.
Yeah.
Football brings people together. Sports brings people together. And Orgeron and Manning cared about Chris Spencer, not the color of your skin.
Well,
I'm not saying stuff didn't happen, but with them to take you to say, here's the chance, here's what I would do if you were my son, that hit me when you said that.
Yeah. I mean, and trust me, there's a lot that's happening growing up in Mississippi, you know, that from just from a look standpoint. But again, like I said, you know, my out was that I was somebody in Mississippi as a name. But at the same time, when I'm doing what I do now, and as I look back, you know, in hindsight, because of something Archie said to me, he said when he made that phone call and called me back, he said, "It's a legit grade, and I know that you will be a first rounder because they haven't seen your intangibles yet."
Oh, so this is just based on the football, the film, the tape, basically.
Based just off the tape.
Yeah.
And so that stuck with me, and as I'm sure we'll talk about it, but there's a lot that I'm doing in my life now that
I do want to talk
trying to really, you know, highlight why those things are important, you know.
I just love that you had someone in that moment because your mom, as moms, especially if she's not right there, they can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
And the money part comes into it, where if you're from a poor family or even a well-to-do family, that's a lot of money.
Oh, there's a lot of calls now.
Even today.
There was a lot of calls.
From
a lot of family members and, you know, friends and, you know, a lot of business ideas. You know, it was some rocky waters early on with, you know, having that because, you know, I feel like we do athletes a disservice when you put the contract into the papers like that because that's not reality. You know, because that first check, take half of that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then your cost of living, and then you know, I was fortunate to be around a lot of smart people to start thinking about, hey, if your career ends tomorrow, this money that you just made, now you have to spread this over the next 40 years, 50 years of your life. Yeah. If you do the math and you look at it that way, you're working at McDonald's or, you know, if your career ends today. Yes. You got this big lump sum, and now you can do nothing for the rest of your life. This is what it's going to look like. And so I've always thought about it that way. Right. And so I made my decisions around that when it came to that. And so the best advice my father-in-law gave me was put an account aside, and that's where you put your donation, your giveaway money into that. And when that's done, that's it. You know, and so that was the best. That was my way of being able to do what my heart wanted to do, is to help.
Interesting.
Without feeling this guilt that I can't help you. It's like I've put it aside to do this, and now, once it's done, you know, I don't feel like I got to keep doing. Yeah, and that pressure that might come with it. So when you actually heard your name called that night, were you there? No, I was home. I didn't want to go. Why? Just in case you didn't hear your name called in the first round? Well, it was the same year Aaron Rodgers was drafted. Oh yeah, that's right. And so Alex Smith and all those guys, you know, who was going to fall, and I just didn't want to sit in that whole. It's so terrible. And I'm thinking also too. And then the cameras are in your face. I'm a lineman. I'm a center. So humble. You know, yeah, it was. I think the first center. I think the last center was like. That was taken in the first round was like 15 years before that or something. Oh, you're kidding. Yeah, so I'm like. But you came out in the good center class. That was Jason Brown was in that class, wasn't he? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think the Ravens drafted him. I think I was there when they drafted him. I just would have loved to have seen the outfit that you would have chosen. Yeah, you know. I had to find a picture of the shirt that I had. So I stayed home. I decided I didn't want to go have cameras in the house or anything, so I just stayed home because I was just didn't know what was going to happen. And we had a party set up after I got drafted down in Jackson, and so we heard my name, and then we loaded up the car real quick, and we drove down to Jackson where all my family and friends and teachers and
That's super cool.
Yeah, so it was fun.
That is super cool. How was the adjustment then when you go to Seattle, of all places, from Mississippi, Oxford, Miss, to Seattle?
Oh, that was there was a moment when I landed in Seattle, and I walked off the plane, and I could just the crisp air that you can just breathe. It was
Interesting. Instead of the heavy, humid.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my, I can breathe. What is this? And I remember getting to the hotel and going down, and I was gonna have dinner by myself, and I've never seen like some of these amazing dishes that they had in this place, and it was like I ordered halibut with a bed of mashed potatoes and had all this greenery around it, and I was just like, man, this is interesting. I don't think I'm gonna like this. And then I ordered some sweet tea, and this is when I knew I wasn't in Kansas anymore,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yes.
The lady looked at me and she's like, well, we can bring you over some unsweet tea with sugar packages. And I was just like, no. She
You
said,
don't understand.
What do you mean? She's like, I said, no, to make sweet tea, it has to be hot when you put the sugar in so it can dissolve and all that. And she's like, yeah, no, we don't do that here. I'm like, okay, all right.
You are not in Kansas
like,
anymore.
all right,
Yeah.
all right. So I think that was that moment when you start to realize, like, man, I'm not gonna have my bluebell ice cream. I'm not gonna have my sweet tea. I'm not gonna have all these things that I enjoy, my black eyed peas and stuff.
Oh my gosh, collard greens, like the whole thing. Yeah. But I don't know. I think back on how it would feel at that point to be alone, essentially trying to make new friends. It's almost like you're in 6th grade again.
Yeah.
But living that dream that had become a dream.
Yes. I was on cloud 9, so like I wasn't thinking about all that, and especially that first couple of hours of getting to the facility and starting to meet people and getting ready to do the press conference. I was on cloud 9. Now where it changed and where it shifted for me was I'm standing there, and I never forget Mike Holmgren and Tim Ruskell leans in, and I don't know if this is like a motivation thing or this is what GMs and coaches tell you when you get drafted, but they lean in and say, hey, enjoy this moment. I'm like, I'm enjoying it, man. This is awesome. He's like, we start looking for your replacement tomorrow.
Oh.
And that was the moment that I realized that I had left college, and now I'm a pro now.
That is cool.
I'm a pro now. And so,
How did that drive you?
like, 1, to get drafted in the first round as a center. 2, to have them say that. 3, the one thing that my granddad always told us, that name belongs to me. Don't embarrass it. And so that was all the drive that I need to go out and try to perform at the highs of the high.
Yeah.
And making sure that I didn't embarrass that last name, and making sure that whoever they brought in to replace me, it was going to be a fight.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I love that. We begin looking for your replacement.
Oh yeah.
I don't care how good you are.
And it
out
was
there.
dead serious too. It was like, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, you guys just drafted me in the first round. What are you talking about? No, it was business.
Oh,
And I so appreciate it because it got me off that cloud 9 that I've never been used to being on quickly. I mean, within a day of getting drafted, now that cloud 9 is back to my roots.
right
of,
back. Yeah.
I'm here to work.
That's what you needed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like you needed. Yeah. 10 total years?
10 total years.
And Chicago for a few, and then you end up here in Tennessee. One of the things that, I mean, we talk about what you're doing now. One of the things that I've seen through the years, I mean, the first time I covered an NFL team was 1995. That was Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Captain Comeback, I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's how far back.
Yeah.
I look at him now and I'm like, you dressed a lot better back when you were a player. We didn't have our khakis up to our man boobs.
I think that was the year I was wearing like backwards overalls, I think.
I forgot about those. What size were those, Spencer?
Those some big boys.
Those were. One of the things that has been cool to watch the evolution of, though, is the commitment that the teams in the league has to helping the players transition and having accountants there from the moment you get there as a young player, as a rookie, to help you manage it, to advise you, to make sure you're active in the community and then prepare you for the outside. Now, I know that it probably wasn't, always great and perfect, but did those resources help that the league provided, or was this definitely more of you saying, I know what I need?
I think it was more so of me, and not the league had a lot of resources, and they, I had my own financial advisor and things like that, and they had a lot of education and rules in place to kind of help you navigate through it, but I didn't know myself well enough at that time to really understand how to use those resources.
Correct. Yeah.
And so the resources that I was using was the things that I was working on. And I think that's where, if you don't have the right people around you, you can end up making some mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so I was fortunate, as I'm meeting with financial advisors, meeting with accountants and things like that, that I was putting people around me that, that I can rely on, and when I look back over it and look at the numbers of, 75% of guys were broken divorce as I was leaving the league within 5 years, it makes me realize that I wasn't the only one who was thinking the same way, thinking that way of, well, I don't know what I need. I don't know how to use this resource, because I just didn't know who I was at 20, 21, 22 years old.
You?
And so when you look at the resources from the league standpoint, I mean, there needed to be some change in how you really understand how to use those resources, and not just an umbrella of here's everything you can do.
Okay. So you take some good from it, you take some bad from it, and then you figure it out on your own. Did you know while you were in football, so while you were still playing, what you wanted to do after?
No, I was committed to football. That was my commitment. I didn't do a lot of outside investment and things like that when it came to startup companies. I even missed out on opportunity with Smart Water when they was coming along.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, and because I'm the type of person that I want to know how it all works, just so I don't end up getting screwed over.
Well, that's a good quality.
But I didn't have the time to commit to understanding how a different industry worked at that time. And so for me, I was just constantly thinking about what I wanted to do. But I was also constantly thinking about, I don't want football to ever end. I was going to be in a wheelchair. You had to roll me out of there because I was fearful of that transition. I was fearful of, now here's, I've made it this far. No one has figured out this dyslexia thing on me. And now I have to go in the real world, and that's when they're going to figure it out. And so I was constantly battling that throughout my career of, I'm going to play through this because I don't want anybody to know. So I'm going to play through this because I don't know what I'm going to do in a transition.
So it's fear-driven.
A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. A lot of fear and anxiety, which is kind of, about mid of my career was kind of my breaking point, when it kind of goes back to the thought I said about mental toughness. You need it to survive, but what you need to thrive is mental performance. And what that is shaping your skills from a psychological standpoint and a cognitive standpoint so that you can thrive using your mental toughness. You need mental toughness.
We all do, no matter what.
You also need that mental performance and the ability to emotionally regulate, the ability to have thoughts come up, negative thoughts come up, and you know how to work through those things. And I was so used to with my mental toughness, stuffing all of that down till things were breaking, but I could fix it.
Right.
I could fix it.
Well, you had proven that you could.
I can fix it.
Right.
Until it got to a point where I could no longer fix it. My mental toughness is leaking because now I'm thinking, get an injury and thinking like, I should retire. I can't do this anymore. And so it took a special person noticing that was happening for me to say, hey, come in my office. I remember our trainer at the Seahawks, he looked at me, he's like, I need you to talk to a sports psychologist. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not talking to a sports psychologist. He's like, no, I need you to talk to a sports psychologist. And when you're kind of up against the wall, you just kind of, and you don't want to admit that you're up against the wall.
Right.
You just say, okay. And I said, okay. And it changed my whole outlook on the mental toughness aspect, and that I can't just go through life with just mental toughness. I have to have this ability to work through these different challenges, be able to control my emotions, which again, when you look at how I grew up, I was never taught that.
Right.
Because it's not my mom's fault. She was never taught that.
That's the generational part of it.
Generational
right?
piece of it. And so for me, I was, I'm just this 8, 9-year-old boy in his big body, just need a mom to give me a hug. And so just trying to figure out how to navigate through that while still trying to maintain this tough mindset, this tough outward thing that as a football player you have to be.
You have to have it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how did you finally push through? Just him saying, you got to do this? It took him...
It took his push, and when I finally started having a conversation, and that was one of those conversations where you start to realize, like, someone can give you a tool and you can dissipate those negative thoughts really quickly, and then you can get right back focused. It's different than visualizing yourself playing a game and visualizing yourself. It's like when you have, negative thoughts that comes up and you can't move away from them, the wall starts to close in on you.
Come on you.
Yeah.
And did you feel it?
Oh, I felt the walls closing in. Oh, you're a fraud. I mean, I was already feeling like I'm a fraud because I've been hiding from what this dyslexia piece that I had, and I didn't want anybody to know that. You're feeling like, oh, you're a fraud. Oh, you shouldn't have been a first-round draft pick. Oh, you're a bust. And so all of that pressure started to happen, and so I really dove in. I dove in and started learning about the body, and as I started learning about the body, started learning about the psychology aspect of it. I mean, I dove in. I had books and stuff I just started reading, picking up, just so I could learn more about it, to understand the nervous system in a way that, how do I get my nervous system out of fight or flight?
That's just not, that thought process is not normal. To me, from afar, to be able to look at yourself from a bird's eye view, say, this is good, this part I'm really struggling in, and then to eventually attack it. I hope that you give yourself some credit.
It's not me. That's a God thing. It's not me.
There we go. You're a vessel.
I'm a small town kid from Mississippi. To do what I'm doing now, it's definitely a God thing. To have the awareness that I was having at an early age, to be able to scan out and see it, and still missing things, but starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. I now can say that having this dyslexia piece was my superpower. And I didn't realize it because I was able to put these pieces together that make sense to me. And as I start to do that, because I've had the experience on the ground, now I can say, oh, I know how to do this now for people who've been through the trenches. And that's a different story to tell. That's a completely different outlook on life when you've lived it and you're able to scan out and see it in a way that most people are not seeing, and you're 5, 10 years ahead of what's happening, and you start to realize, and you're like, okay, this is definitely a God thing. It's not me.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
and that's cool. When did the God part come in?
Oh, it's been there the whole time. It's been there the whole time. I would say over the last probably 2 years, I've been, I want to say last 4 years of starting my own company, going through challenges within relationships and, kids and marriage. I started to realize, when I played football, when I got to the professional league, my personal growth paused. And it felt like it was just stuck in time. And so why? Because you get paid millions of dollars to do a game you love to do. As it's a kid's game. It's your job, but you love it. And so I'm getting paid this kind of money. And so it forced, I want to say forced, my mindset went back into how I grew up. It was like, well, my dad wasn't around. My granddad was there. He put food on the table. You have food on the table. Mm-hmm. What are you complaining about? What's there to complain about? And so I clicked into that mindset and not understanding the damage that it was doing psychological to my wife. When I'm now in the house every day, she didn't have to see me every day.
Right.
I didn't have to come in and critique, hey, how are you folding the clothes, or how you're doing things. Hey, we can do this more efficient. All of a sudden now I know how to do this better than you. You've been doing it for 10 years. And so then you pile all that stress on of starting a company, and this company that I built, it's self-funded. Then you start piling on, kids. And so now you're completely out of sorts without the skills to actually manage all of that.
Right.
And so, and that was the moment I started to realize that, all right, if I want to make some real change, then I got to actually dive deeper into learning more about other things. And because I was in that world of learning about psychology and, technology, I started doing some research around, especially playing football, and started worried about, what happens if from concussions and things like that. And so I started looking at different plant medicines and things like that can help me unlock what truly what God has for me. And I will say that it's been probably the best present I've ever given myself, life-changing, because it's opening up my mind and my heart in a way that I don't think, I could have got there in another way. It made me see myself, put my ego to sleep in a way that I could truly see how I was showing up in relationships. And it also showed me all of the things within my life where I was trying to optimize myself to 100%, but I couldn't because I was carrying all this stuff.
Too much.
And I didn't know it, I was carrying it. And so it gave me the ability to be able to see it, recognize it, and release it, but then go back and then reparent the things that me as a young kid didn't get. So then I can show up and reparent within my own kids.
Oh my goodness.
And reparent in my own relationship.
Yes.
And so that was a it's been very emotional for me as I started to really think through this process, because it's been taboo to do these things.
You mean as a man?
Just as a black male with therapy, that it was taboo, in our community. It's changing now. It's taboo to start thinking about other alternative ways to really heal yourself, to heal trauma. And so now with the things that are happening in our country now, that, we have a real chance to help a lot of people and help people heal, where it's just not, you're not just digging a hole and burying it.
Exactly.
And so.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so it's just been it's been a very eye-opening piece for me, and I'm thankful for it, and I've been able to truly now see exactly, when I can tell you it's a God thing, I can tell you 100% factual is a God thing, because I know exactly where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing, how I'm supposed to do it, and there's no question.
There's no doubt.
I used to doubt everything that I used to do, especially early on in building what I've been building. But now I don't. And I say yes. And I'm doing things that's way outside of my comfort zone, like sitting here with you.
I know.
I'm not a...
No, but number one, okay, you've been doing in front of cameras and microphones for 100 years, so you make it look easy, you hide it well. But I think it's super important that you're actually saying that, because there's so many who, especially like you said, with men, men in football and black community, where you are told to, what'd you say? Sweep it under the rug.
Sweep it under the rug.
And make it go away.
Yeah.
So all that work that you've done to get to a point like today where you're not embarrassed to say it.
No.
Like, that's a beautiful thing.
He got to be mad at me if I'm embarrassed to say it now, because he showed me. He's
put it right there.
He's put it right there for me to go get it, and to be able to share it in a way that, hopefully if one person is looking, is stuck, because I was stuck, and I was trying to figure out, how do I save my marriage? How do I save I don't want my kids to grow up without a dad. How do I not become what I've seen?
Right.
And so I can't turn my back on that.
But you made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to have the courage, I don't know what other word to use, to receive that from God, to like listen and take it on and make changes. I hope you've given yourself some credit with that.
Yeah, I'm.
Yes, it's God, but you still had to receive it.
Yeah, I'm able to receive those and think back to all those moments that I was questioning and I was, the good things that I've done, and now I'm able to see it for what it is and see it, that it was always there in me, and I just needed to tap into it in a different way and not run from it, because I've been running from it for a long time. And so now that I'm able to tap into it, it's easy for me to be still and listen now. I know what true meditation is, and
Can you help me?
it's once you understand what he has for you, the true meditation, and being able to tap into what he has for you, it's life-changing.
What does that look like every day?
Again, I'm not a writer. I'm journaling every day. I'm actually on chapter 6 of a book that I'm working on, and I'm not a writer, but it's just flowing out of me now.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm doing things that I swore I would never do. I have my own podcast now, talking about these pieces around intangibles, why they're important, and I've been reading Mel Robertson book. She, Let Them, and
I'm halfway through it.
Me too, and it's been so good to kind of like keep reinforcing all the things that I've been working on and seeing, and in that it's like that's been my thing throughout this podcast, because I just started in mid-November, and it's going really well. And
you're coming to the dark
the
side.
Comments, for me, it was always like, I'm not doing that. Everybody's doing a podcast. I'm not doing that. I don't want people to critique every little word that I say. I don't want to say the wrong thing and then end up over here. I just don't want to do it. But I've, really been using her saying a lot. Just let them, because what he has for me is much bigger than my fear. And so I just wake up every day excited, happy to be able to go out and do what I'm doing. And once you're able to tap into those pieces, that those little doubts that you normally have, you see it just, your phone rings, and it's like, hey, can you do this? Or, this company calls and say, hey, we want to work with you. And you're like, I just had to get out of my own way.
Correct. And once we do, I think, first of all, that book, for anyone who hasn't heard of it yet. Oh.
You know what I do every morning? My kids hate it now because I play it every day. Because I have a 13-year-old. The audiobook. Yeah. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son and 12-year-old son. And they're going through these stages of life, especially my daughter with all the girl drama things like that. Every day it's in the car. She's, so-and-so did this and so-and-so said that. And I'm just like, hey, Madison, you don't have to dive in every time someone says something. So I put it on in the car, and we listen to it on the way to school every morning.
You do?
Oh, yeah. We listen to it every morning, because I don't know if they're listening, but I hope that somewhere from a subconscious standpoint that something lands and stick with them that they'll be able to use, because now more than ever, we have to start giving our kids these tools to navigate, because the environment we're growing in.
Correct. I think that even if they're halfway listening, they are receiving. I'm sad that it's taken me 52 years to figure out some of these things, but that's why the gift of you speaking about it is that it won't take your kids as long.
Yeah.
And then with their kids, it'll be 1,000 times better too. And just real quick, like the let them is, okay, hey, I'm Chris Spencer, I'm gonna start a podcast. And whoever, old teammate, fans, whatever, to be like, what you said, really? Everybody does that.
Yeah.
Let them think that.
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about a lot of separate things, me and your wife as well. And okay, so your wife is white.
Yep. No, she's Canadian.
Excuse me. That's very different. You're right. She's just Canadian.
That's what I told my family. I told my aunt. She said, "You're not going.
I know this.
You're going to Ole Miss, and you're gonna, you're not marrying a white girl, are you?" And I'm like, "No, she's Canadian."
You're so stupid.
She's
then,
Canadian.
Oh, that's fine then.
Oh yeah, she's okay.
No problem.
Okay,
By the
we
way,
good.
and that's what should be in America. No, they're just American, and you never know what the heck's going to come with that. But okay, you married a white girl, you're a sellout. You're like, no, I'm not a whatever you're called, whatever we are called, and whatever we call them sometimes, right? Doesn't matter. It goes there. Let them. What I tried to do was to change their mind, or to beg them to see my point of view, to say, no, I'm not this, I'm not what you think. There's so much peace and letting go and letting them judge us. And I do think, and I don't think she talks much about God in this book so far. For us, though,
Yeah.
it's easier to let them if you have that faith, which you already had before you started playing that book.
Yeah. And I'm also, again, I'm not that smart, so so I never really listened to all that anyway.
You just said something. You're not supposed to say that. Like this bad self-talk, that's a thing.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
She mentioned, I listened to
Yeah.
part of this book last
Yeah.
night. I was really upset about something. I listened to it at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Let them. And I'm like, long story. I'll tell you later. But I started to say, see, I'm like, I was calling myself names. You jackass, that is your fault. You're such an idiot. And I was like,
I think we're
wait.
the same spot. What I meant by that is that said it in a way that doesn't sound selfish, because I really didn't care what people had to say. So for me, whatever anybody had to say, I'm going to live my own life.
Correct, yeah.
And so
I got you.
So especially growing up in Mississippi, and when you're stubborn like I am, and someone tell you can't do something, then you kind of put up. And no one really told me that, but my mindset was, I'm going to love who I love.
Yes.
And didn't matter what they look like, that's what I was gonna do, and I wasn't gonna let someone tell me I couldn't.
Okay.
And so for me, when I say that, it's a little cheeky way of saying, hey, I don't really care if somebody told me I couldn't do it, because I'm gonna do what I wanna do anyway.
Which is the competitive part too.
Correct.
That's the stubborn kid part. But there's a softness to you.
Yeah.
With we all still do worry at times about what others think.
Yeah, and the thing that I worried about, again, I think I was so distracted from all of the other things, because of the only thing that I cared about was not letting anybody know about my dyslexia. The only thing I worried about was that. So I didn't have room for anything else to come in to take me off that track. So whatever people said about who I was dating or married, I didn't have room for it, because my sole focus was, I don't want people to think that I'm just a dumb athlete from Mississippi. So that filled my bucket.
To a fault.
To a fault.
That breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
Because on the exterior we see one thing, and the world sees one thing, but then on the inside, you know what, Chris, it's a lesson, it's a reminder that it doesn't matter what everybody has and how much money and fame, everybody's got something.
Everybody has
that
something.
they're striving with and dealing with.
Yeah.
When did you, are you comfortable now? I mean, you've said dyslexia, you've said the word several times.
Oh yeah.
Now
I'm
you're
so comfortable with it, because again, it's my superpower. It's why I can have empathy for people. It's why I'm able to see things that people are not really thinking about, and I could be in 1,000 different conversations and be able to connect the dots in ways that people don't think about. And so, yes, I'm very comfortable with it now, and I know what my skill set is, and I surround myself with the people that balance my skill set.
Which is another decision.
Yeah.
That's a choice, yes.
Correct. Back to mental performance.
It all comes back. And before we get to that, I just want to say, or maybe ask, because we've talked separately about journeys and being on a journey, which is different for everybody. How would you describe yours?
I would describe mine as finally for the first time let my ego rest and not try to control situations. I describe it as being able to have my soul walk with God in a way that I thought he had left me, thought he wasn't there, and being able to reconnect with him in a way that you truly see who he is, but also being able to dive deeper into these wounds that you have that alters your path. And I had a brother that drowned at a young age. That I always felt like it was my fault because my mom was at the school checking on me because I was acting up, and we get a phone call that this has happened, and we get to the house, and I just remember I've always had that in my head, but I've never been able to get deep enough to it to see why I reacted certain ways. And on this journey, I was able to get to the root of it, and being back there, seeing my mom cry at this funeral, and thinking that at a young age, this is my fault. This is my fault. How do I fix this? Well, I'm gonna fix this by I'm gonna be the best kid. I'm gonna do what anybody asks me to do. I'm never gonna get into trouble. And so I started to stack all of this pressure on me at an early age. And I think it was in that moment for me was, it's like, well, you want to perform at an optimal 100%, but you're already carrying 40%. So you can get to 60, 65, but you already have all of that weight that you're carrying. You'll never get to that 100% until we figure out how to let that go. And so I don't think I was aware enough to know that that's how deep I needed to get. And so for me, that meant everything to me, to be able to let all of it go so then I can then get back into this life of being able to perform at 100% and be my authentic self for people. And it's increased all the thoughts and ideas and things that I have around what I'm doing. It's just so crazy that I'm doing what I'm doing, and everything that I've done in my life leads right into this. So that's why I don't have a question of where I'm supposed to be. And so this is what that journey has done for me, all the way to like how I have to show up for my wife, and show up for my kids, and understanding how to let the defensive piece go, those defensive pieces that you grew up building, growing up in Mississippi, where you don't want people to think you're dumb, letting those things go where, hey, if I'm gonna walk into this room as a very large black male, I may need to put a button up on or a polo, put a polo on or put a pair, slippers on or whatever you want to call them, loafers, to make people feel comfortable around me. And so being able to go through that and be able to like let all that go and just be who I am, and if people don't like it, that's not my problem. That's what I say. Let them.
Let them.
Yeah.
Did you ever talk to your mom?
Oh yeah.
About what you carried and the guilt you felt for the loss of your brother, for her pain?
Mm-hmm. I've been careful about that because, bringing up all of that for her, I have the tools to deal with it now. She, to bring that back up and not have, to bring a lot of it back up and not have the tools, it can be really challenging and difficult to handle. And so I've kind of, just loved on my mom more, and knowing that generationally things got handed down and passed down to her that she just didn't know.
Well, and she was also 15.
Right.
And she was.
And things that I didn't know that I've now hand it off to my kids, I have the tools to now stop that piece so it doesn't repeat. And so I can fix it. It can change with me without having to go back and have everybody else relive whatever's come up. And so,
But I just like the mother in me, even though I know you've done so much work, and we've talked about some of this before, like wants to hug you, and because of what you must have been experiencing during that time.
but
Like, was there?
you're a mother though. And if I tell you that this is what I was experiencing, what are you going to do? You're going to hurt even more, because all moms want to do is fix it and be able to soothe you and all that.
Yes, but just like, yes,
Yeah.
100%. And we want to, in many ways, we don't want to hurt, we want to protect, if we have, I guess, the right tools. But in all those years, because you were how old when that tragedy happened?
I think I was 7, 8 years old.
Third grade?
Yeah.
Like, in all those years, before you were able to comprehend and to do something about it, what was your low point?
My low point was probably separating from my wife. Probably was my low point. You know, and trying to figure out how do I be better so my kids don't grow up without me. That was probably my lowest point.
So that's a lot of years between when it happened and then a separation. So you let that pile up, I don't mean it that way, for decades.
Big decades. And you get into these places where you start to justify, it's not me, and until you get to a place where you start to realize, like, you know what, I can't keep saying it's not me. I got to focus on me and figure out how to clean up my side of the street for me. And that was the moment I started to realize, like, all right, this is, you know, it takes two. It's not a one-sided street. And again, I think you have kids for a reason, because your kids, you know, you see a lot of yourself in your kids, and you also see it's like a mirror, and you also see things that you're like, ooh, I do that. Ooh, how is that going to play in this environment? How is it going to play in that environment? And then you really start to self-reflect and figure out how do you clean these things up, which is how I started thinking about getting into that journey.
I hope that during this journey, that you've been able to, I get choked up when I say this, but that you've been able to give yourself credit for all that you were able to do, so much positive, for your teammates, for younger kids who you're the role model, probably for siblings, cousins, and your wife, and your kids, while carrying such a burden. Have you been able to be kinder to yourself and say, it was not perfect, but you did that. You thrived. You did so much good while suffering.
Yeah, and that's part of my work, is to, you know, to continue to work through that process and keep, you know, going back and reloving my younger self and my angry teenager and, you know, my critical parent. Like, you know, it's, you have to go back and reparent. It's like parenting a kid all over again. Yeah. So once you're able to recognize what these things are doing, then it's very powerful. And so for me, I'm now able to give myself the credit because, you know, I had to do it. I've done the work, and I'm doing the work to make sure that these things don't repeat, but also to be a beacon of light for other athletes who may have grown up the way I grew up and stuck and trying to figure out, you know, how to navigate, you know, outside of what they really know, and just other people in general who just find themselves in a place that, I don't know what to do. I've been talk therapy for a long time. I've been doing this, been doing that, and things still not changing. And so, I'm very open about those things because of it, because of what it's done for my family, what it's done for my own healing. Because, people, when they think about trauma, they think about trauma as in very gruesome things. And they don't think about all the micro traumas that you have in your life.
You're so right.
Not having food, or your lights not being on, not being able to put gas in the car. You start to build all these different micro traumas, having a brother pass away, you blaming yourself. That next thing you know, you've built a building of things that.
Not a wall,
right,
a building.
right,
Yeah.
And so, so I think it's important for, that's why I believe in what I'm doing. The work that I'm doing is because, that without me diving into that work, I wouldn't have been open enough. I wouldn't have had the mindset to say, I'm stuck. Let me figure out how to get myself unstuck.
Today, family, how is it?
Thriving, family's good.
Compared to the moment, to that low point in your life when you had a terrible decision to make to today.
Yeah, it was a hard decision. It was a hard decision, but it was definitely a decision that has altered, where we are now. We both are, doing our own work and working hard and parenting our kids in a way that they understand what emotions and feelings are and how to recognize them, and not let them pile up, but also, still trying to teach the kids the grit, the mental toughness, because they're growing up in an environment that, not like my environment. And so, so we have to do makeshift things to do, like, take them down to the farm and make them work, when it's hot, and so, but teaching them that mental toughness while teaching them how to manage their emotions and parenting them in a way that, they can just, hear it day in and day out. But it's not one of those things that you get perfect, but it's something that we're constantly working and striving to.
One of the things that I subscribe to now is that as much as that was terrible, a dark part of your life, difficult part, number one, everyone has it. We've confirmed that, has something.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something. But number two, I always say to my kids, with a couple of things that we have been through in the divorce and things that have been devastating for me and for them and for their dad, all five of us, I wouldn't change it because it did shape me into who I am today. But most importantly, if our pain can help our kids not go through it and maybe make different decisions to not let it pile up to walls and buildings,
Right.
Then our pain is worth it because they're going to be better for it. Yeah. That doesn't happen unless you share it,
Right.
unless you choose to share about that tragedy, about having dyslexia, about the fears, all of it. So I hope that parents out there can continue to have the courage to do what Chris has done and face it, not just face it, but then share it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what a waste.
Yeah.
I said to Quinn, my oldest daughter, I'm like, girlfriend, if you waste my pain, I'm going to kill you. Please use this.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it 10 times over if my kiddo can be better from it.
Right.
So you're so brave for it, and I love you even more for it because it's a gift that you're choosing to give and choosing to do it publicly because there's so much that you are involved in. Yeah. Okay, I won't try to say it. The podcast is super successful right now, and you're having great conversations with a variety of different people. So start with the podcast. Yeah,
so, we started this podcast, again, is in line with all these things around, these intangibles that people don't see, like, me now being able to share my story in a way, those are those little things that shape you who you are. And so we started that for parents to really start to focus on why we need to start focusing on the intangible aspect of our young kids now, because of the structure that they're playing in, they don't have the ability to now go climb a tree, ride their bikes, and negotiate on the court playing basketball. They don't have that ability anymore, and so they're losing their ability to critically think. They're losing the ability to use, and again, it's in the same category in my opinion, is mental performance.
Yeah.
So when we have that, we have this happening because of the age that we're in and technology. How do we, reach back in and start having conversation around it? And so that's the purpose of the Intangible Podcast is, former athletes, CEOs, coaches, we're geared up to interview a lot of different people to talk about their stories, their upbringing, and the things that made them who they are, so that other people can hear why it's important, especially in the day and age of the transfer portal, NIL. These young athletes in high school, especially high school athletes, they have to be in a position now to show more than just their physical ability. They have to be able to show their coachability, their character, their leadership. And we're now in an age where we can quantify that kind of information. And so that's the real catalyst behind intangibles is to have a conversation around it, and so people can hear from a lot of different people, and again, not just athletes, and not just male athletes. And so so we're on the quest to make sure that people can start having these conversations with their kids, especially parents with their kids, and kids to hear and start to realize that, hey, I can't just run a 4.240. I better understand what my communication style is.
Yes.
Because if I understand that, if we start teaching this early in life, because we got these things from our environment innately, our kids are not. And so we have to start teaching them this so that then they can start to understand how their skills are transferable to a different environment and not wait till they get to the pros. And so
starting them young. Yeah. Podcast, what else?
And then we have a new module that we just released for high school athletes called Player Q, for player intelligence, a spin-off of EQ, IQ, where we've created an AI interviewer called Coach Carter. Coach Carter can interview a kid, take their language, and then give them a report on where they are from an attribute standpoint of coachability, character, leadership, composure, communication style, tips on how to improve. How does my dynamic, where I fall, shows up in a team setting?
That's amazing.
And then also, how do I watch out for my dynamic right now? I know I want to improve, but how do I watch? What are the things I need to watch out for now? And so we've created this now for high school kids, 14 and older, can go to our website, playerq.io, and they can take this. They can take this assessment. And we've created a tool. That's what I've been building over the last 4 or 5 years. Is a company that's taking psychology and technology and being able to meet people where they are by using your language. So we can take your language from this podcast and we can analyze your language, your words, and then give you about 80 data points on yourself from personality, behavior, communication style, stress tolerance, anxiety, you name it, bypassing the bias of what we've done historically with different assessments. Your social bias, your test bias, all these different things that we do, we're able to use your language set and then be able to look at it from several different frameworks so that you're not having to sit down 45 minutes to take an assessment.
Right.
If your job is to do a press conference, and if our athlete's job is to do press conferences, we can take those and then we can show you how you're presenting, because how we think we're presenting is different. And we're not talking about how intelligent you are and things like that. We're talking about, those words meaning a lot, because 60% of our language it comes from our subconscious. And we as humans, when we're interviewing someone, talking to someone, we're only looking at what's the context, and those context words. Now, when we start looking at function words, the I, the we, the they, the ofs, things like that put sentences together, those things just subconsciously just roll out of us. And so in order for you to change that, it would take a lot. You can't really change it. And so that's why language is really important. That's why language really helps us see deeper into who people are versus some of the other things that are out there. That's what's there, but we're on a cutting edge of what technology can do and blending it in with using psychology base to really meet people where they are. If we're using so much technology, you know, we have to really start to shift. And so that's been my thing for the last 6 years that I've been deep dive into. And again, kid from Mississippi,
I was just going to say that.
In the technology space, have a technology company, and also psychology. You know, from that humble background to what I'm doing now, I'm very proud of what I'm doing, and I believe what we are doing as a team, is going to change people's lives, especially our younger people. But also as we start to expand our platform into work environments and things like that, that we truly get to see who people are in a way that's going to help them communicate better without this I need to take this and I'm going to tell you what I think I want you to hear, what I think I want you to know about me. You can't fake the language aspect.
You cannot. I almost feel like it's like a polygraph of some sort, like a lie detector test, but you know, something like that where it's like it can read you. It's incredible. So you are choosing to take all of the things that you've learned, the shortcomings, all of it, and to help.
Yep.
That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's what I've been put on this earth to do.
Yes. Isn't that a beautiful thing when you figure out the why behind why you're here?
Yes. And I've been searching for the why for a long time, and to truly know what my why is, man, I just shouted from the rooftop because I know what that why is, and like I said, if I help one person, man, I know that person's going to be touched, and so the fact that we can do this on a scale for, you know, high schools across America, colleges across America, you know, to really start to reinforce what mental performance is in our young people who, mind you, especially from our athletic population, 60% are going to go work in a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 100 company, and so those skills are transferable. And we're losing out right now because we are not focused on helping our young people understand that. And that's why this is really important.
It's crucial. It's everything. And I appreciate all the efforts. I appreciate the vulnerability and how candid you are, because it's only helping others. And I also think that the more we say things that have been painful, it's therapeutic for us as well. Like, it's a win-win for everybody. But you're the example of why, when I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a sportscaster, because I wanted to talk about football and basketball and baseball, but I wanted to know the story behind that person, because it's so much bigger than the sport.
So much bigger.
It's so much bigger, and I am blessed to know you. Thank you, and keep crushing it. But you're on the dark side now, podcaster, media hack. You're welcome to the dark side. It has nothing to do with the fact that they needed more light on us today either. It's not that kind of dark.
You know, make sure I'm lit up, and hopefully with all this heat, you're not sweating me out here. I'm not like dripping sweat by the
You did a great job, and those socks look so good
you
on you.
You like those? I may keep these.
Catherine's going to be like, what is Sage doing now? Give her a hug for me, please.
I will.
God bless you. Thank you for
Thank you so
sharing
much.
everything.
It's been awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. You weren't supposed to make me cry, you jerk.
I know. You had to make me cry over here. I'm like, damn you, Sage.
Damn you, Sage.
I wasn't even planning on going there, but golly.
Well, thank you.